Imagine stumbling upon a secret that could open up a $30 trillion wave of opportunity in crypto. Sounds insane, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to me with XRP this week, and I promise you this. It's not the usual hype. I came across a bold claim from a finance commentator named Rector. Now, he believes XRP might tap into a $30 trillion market over the next decade. Yeah, $30 trillion. Now, my first thought was, there's just no way that that can be real. I've heard some pretty wild predictions about XRP before, right? Price targets that seem plucked from thin air. But this was slightly different. It wasn't a price prediction at all. It was something much bigger. It felt like I had stumbled onto a treasure map where X literally marked a $1 trillion spot. And as I kind of dug deeper into this, the story only got more intriguing. So if you hold XRP, or even just follow crypto, stick with me here, because by the end of this, you might just see the future of XRP in a whole new light. I'll also share a nifty little project that I've been testing out. Hint, it involves turning phones into crypto earners, and a special XRP giveaway from a major crypto exchange. Yeah, there's a lot to cover off today, so let's jump on in. So, picture this. I'm scrolling through crypto news on a Tuesday morning, and I see a headline that practically yells at me. XRP $30 trillion opportunity. Now, I almost kind of scrolled on past it just thinking, here we go, again, more clickbait. But of course, curiosity got the better of me. I clicked, and what I found was actually pretty legit. Now, Rector, who's someone I do respect within the financial space, was breaking down how the tokenization of real-world assets, things like real estate, stocks, bonds, commodities, could be the thing that propels XRP into a whole new league. He even called tokenization the single greatest opportunity in all of finance, second only to global payment flows. That's a pretty huge statement, isn't it? And coming from a guy who studies these markets closely, it kind of hit differently. Basically, he's saying that sure, XRP is already known for moving money across borders, but the next big frontier is tokenizing assets and needing something to connect all of those tokens to actual money. Now, XRP could be that bridge, providing liquidity for all of those new digital tokens and assets in a way that traditional systems simply can't. Now, let's put $30 trillion into perspective, because it is a number that is so big it's hard to really imagine. Now, that's like the combined GDP of several major countries, or about the entire US national debt, give or take a few trillion. Right now, we're almost unreal, right? It's rather crazy. Now, according to projections from Zach, he cited from Ripple and BCG, we could actually see between $12 and $23 trillion of real-world assets tokenized by 2033. And he thinks around $20 to $30 trillion could be flowing on-chain over the next decade. Whether it happens by 2030 or 2035, he said it doesn't really matter. We're heading in that direction either way. Now, hearing that, I had to kind of pause for a second, because even if a fraction of that value runs through the XRP ledger, it could change the game for XRP holders. Now, I've been in crypto long enough to know that just because something sounds huge doesn't mean that it will automatically pump all of our bags. But this wasn't about a quick pump. It was about XRP potentially becoming a part of the plumbing for a new financial system. And that plumbing, it isn't really sexy, but man, it is valuable. Rector also kind of brought up something called the Clarity Act. Now, if you haven't heard of this, it's basically proposed legislation aiming to clearing up the grey areas in crypto regulation, at least in the United States. I know what you're thinking. Why on earth is that important? Well, it actually suggests that once we have clearer laws, like the Clarity Act, it's going to open up the floodgates for big institutions to finally jump into crypto DeFi, specifically on the XRP ledger. Right now, if you think about it, most DeFi actually happens on platforms like Ethereum or maybe some newer kind of chains. XRP's ledger, XRPL, has been more about payments and simple transfers so far. We haven't really seen huge lending platforms or yield farms on the XRPL, largely because the XRP community is mostly holding XRP for long term, and let's also be real, a lot of big players have been waiting for or at least on the sidelines due to regulatory uncertainty. So, imagine a future then where the legal handcuffs come off. Banks, hedge funds, major fintech companies could start using XRP Ledger for decentralized finance. Now that means things like issuing loans, trading stocks as tokens, and providing liquidity. Could all happen on a network that uses XRP as its core. Now, if it won't happen overnight, of course, Zach is quite clear about that, but from now to 2030 and beyond, we could see a slow and then sudden kind of adoption. Kind of like the old line, right? Gradually, then suddenly, right? It got me rather interested and intrigued, right? One day you wake up and, the financial giants are doing yield farming on a blockchain, right? That you've held tokens for years. It's pretty wild, right? Now, here's where the story gets even more real, right? We're not just dealing with theories here. There are some actual moves happening that signal that this is the direction that we're heading in. Zach pointed out that the XRP ledger has started to attract some pretty huge names in finance. Right, I'm talking about BlackRock and VanEck. Now, these are multi-trillion-dollar asset managers. The big dogs. Now, apparently they're working with a firm called Scrutinize to tokenize money market funds. And if you're not familiar, money market funds are basically those super safe, cash-like investments that lots of companies and investors use for parking money. Now, tokenizing them means that you could have a digital token that represents your share of a money market fund, and you could trade or redeem it on a blockchain. And guess what? They're doing all of this on the XRP ledger, using a token reportedly called RLUSD, which likely stands for something like Ripple USD. Now, this would let fund managers and holders actually redeem assets right on-chain. That is huge because it means that big institutions are testing the XRP ledger for real financial products. This is not just crypto experiments or some kind of small startup. And Ripple, the company that's behind much of the XRP ecosystem, it isn't sitting on its hands either. They've been making strategic moves, right? Almost like setting up dominoes to fall in XRP's favor. Now, they've acquired a company called 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰, which connects Ripple to thousands of banks and financial institutions. So think of 𝗗𝗗𝗃 as a gateway to corporate money management. By plugging in, Ripple now has a foot in the door with those players. And another big one, right? Ripple acquired a firm called Hidden Road. Right? Hidden Road is a prime brokerage for really wealthy clients and institutions. Basically a platform that handles trading and financing for big leagues. Now, Ripple turned that into Ripple Prime. And now here's the kicker. Ripple Prime plans to shift its post-trade settlement onto the XRP ledger. In plain English, that means that when big players trade assets, the record keeping and final settlement of those trades, which can involve trillions of dollars in value, could soon be done via XRP's network at a fraction of a cent per transaction. Now, that's not science fiction. That's something that they're actively working on right now. So when I put all of these pieces together, it's kind of like a light bulb went off. XRP isn't aiming to be just fast, cheap payments coin, no. It's positioning itself to be the backbone for tokenized value moving across the globe. But hold on, let me balance this out, because I know it's easy to kind of get overexcited. Right now, Rector himself gave a word of caution here. Even if, let's say, $10 trillion of assets gets tokenized on the XRPL, that does not automatically make the price of XRP shoot to the moon. And it makes a lot of sense, right? Just creating digital tokens for real estate or stocks doesn't inherently create buy pressure for XRP, right? The crucial part is liquidity, right? Will those tokenized assets be traded? Will people need XRP to move in and out of them? Liquidity and actual usage are what would drive demand for XRP, not just the presence of tokens on the ledger. So think of it this way. Having a shiny new highway doesn't guarantee traffic, does it? Cars need a reason to actually use it. Now, similarly, if the XRPL could tokenize the world, but if nobody actually is going to move value around or trade those assets, then XRP, the toll token in a way, might not actually see any big spike at all. However, if XRP, is the grease in the wheels of trillions of dollars in financial traffic, well, That's when things get really interesting. Now, Rector, he pointed out that XRP's ledger design is already compliance ready. It has a built-in decentralized exchange known as a DEX, and soon there will be automated market makers, the AMMs, on it too. Now, all of those pieces can actually help facilitate that liquidity. It's kind of like XRPL is quietly being built out so that Wall Street grade specs, and while everyone else is maybe a little bit too distracted by the shitty meme coins. By this point, I'm sitting here thinking, is this like discovering an old friend? XRP has actually been hitting the gym for a while and studying the bar exam in secret. Now, all of these developments, of course, has been going on, in the background while the price of XRP has mostly been sleepy over the past couple of years. It really kind of feels like the calm before the storm. Now, stepping back from XRP for just a moment, because I did notice a much bigger theme here, connecting the old systems with a new system. Now, the reason that this $30 trillion tokenization idea is so powerful is that it bridges traditional finance, real estate, stocks, etc., with blockchain tech. And guess what? I've been exploring another project that also bridges two worlds in a rather clever way. It connects everyday smartphones to crypto. Now, it's called Unity Nodes, and I want to share with you, this because it's actually a real example of how innovation is seeping into places that you wouldn't really normally expect it to be. So, Unity Nodes. Now, you might have heard me mention this in previous videos, but in case you haven't, the concept is to turn your phone into a part of a global decentralized network and earn crypto rewards for it. It's pretty cool, right? Now, I was intrigued enough that I went ahead and I bought a Unity Node NFT, which basically gives me the rights to connect up to 200 phones to this network. Now, I'm not about to go out there and connect up to 200 phones all at once, right? That's just the max capacity of a single node. No, I'm actually starting off smaller. When this app goes live, I plan to connect 10 phones to test it out and see how it goes. The idea is that those phones will perform little tiny tasks, things like test calls, data, routing, network diagnostics, basically the kind of background tasks that telecoms companies might do on their own networks. But this time it's a decentralized community run network. And in return, my phone's going to be helping out and I get paid in crypto for it. Now, I can choose to be paid in different cryptocurrency assets too. I had to pick XRP as one of the payout options here, along with a few others like Bitcoin, ETH, ADA, for example. And if I can accumulate more XRP passively, then why not, right? Now, Unity, of course, is not the star of this video, so I won't dwell on it for too long, but I do want to be really transparent about what I am doing. Now, it's a bit of an experiment on my part, and kind of like everything in crypto is, I guess, there's no guarantees that I'm going to be a smashing success with it. That's why I'm starting small with those 10 phones to see how it goes. And if it does work and the rewards are as solid as advertised, then I can scale it up gradually. And here's something that I think is really neat. Since one Unity node gives me 200 phones or 200 licenses, I have a way more capacity than I actually personally need. So I actually purchased a second and third Unity nodes with the idea of sharing that capacity out with the community. Now I'm going to lease out some of those licenses to members of our community who are curious about Unity, but don't want to buy a full master node for themselves. It's kind of like if you wanted to mine crypto, but you couldn't afford the entire mining rig, right? You could just rent part of someone else's rig. Now, in this case, you rent a few of my Unity licenses and run a few phones to test it out for yourselves. Now, I'll have more information about all of this and how it all works down in our free educational Discord server. The link for that is in the description below. The Discord, by the way, is an awesome place to learn and chat about projects just like this in a friendly environment. So definitely join if you haven't done so already. Now, Unity nodes, at least to me, is an example of how crypto is not only abstract trading on screen, right? It's actually creeping into real life usage in the same way that XRP might actually end up settling trades for huge institutions. Now, Unity could end up turning our everyday gadgets into a part of a network that actually rewards us. It's all about connected by that kind of same ethos, isn't it? Participate and earn. Now, before I go on any further, let me just drop something rather important right here. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, so I'm glad that we got that disclaimer out of the way. It's a must whenever we talk about big opportunities and my own investments. Seriously though, you've got to be careful out there. Never invest based on someone else's word alone. So, coming back to XRP and this whole massive opportunity then, where does that leave us? Well, regular people like us are watching all of this unfold. Well, personally, it got me thinking about how I'm positioned for the long haul here. Now, I've obviously got my XRP stashed away on, my Ledger devices, and I'm more optimistic than ever about it now. But being in crypto isn't just about holding and hoping, is it? It's also about being prepared and being adaptable. Now, one practical thing that I do, and I highly recommend, is making sure that I'm not relying on just one exchange or one platform. Now, I've seen many exchanges suddenly halt withdrawals or even go bust. We all remember those headlines about FTX, right? Even if they do try to rebrand it, we won't be going back to that exchange anytime soon. So, I have a bit of a safety net strategy here. Now, I maintain accounts on multiple exchanges, sort of a plan A, plan B, plan C kind of situation. Now, I'm talking about Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, Blowfin, BitGet, LBank, you name it, right? Now, I go through all of the signups, I do all of the KYC if needed, and I test them out with small test trades. This way, if one exchange has some issues, I can quickly pivot to another one. Now, if you've only ever used one exchange and that one exchange happens to freeze on one day down the line, you're going to be kind of stuck. So spread it out and always test your access before you urgently actually need it. So if you're curious which platforms I trust and use regularly, then I have put together a list of all of the exchanges on my website that is linked in the description below. Now on the website, those are affiliate links that support the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. That was a shameless plug, but hey, it does keep the lights on and I only list exchanges that I actually genuinely do use. Now, the main point is, having backup exchanges is kind of like having multiple exit doors in a club. If things get a bit too crazy, you don't want to be the one stuck shuffling for the one overcrowded exit. Have multiple options. And speaking of exchanges, I want to share a pretty cool opportunity that popped up. I've partnered up with Kraken, one of my favorite crypto exchanges, and one that I've used for a very long time. And they've got a limited time promo just for you guys, right? A nice little bonus. Now, here's the deal. If you sign up for Kraken through my special affiliate link that I put in the description below, and you trade at least $100 worth of any cryptocurrency, excluding stablecoins, within 30 days, well, Kraken's going to drop you $25 worth of XRP into your account as a reward. That's free XRP for doing something that you might have done anyway. It's not bad, right? It's a pretty sweet way to kind of stack a bit more XRP on the side. It's also a solid reason to get your Kraken account set up and tested before the next big bull run hits, right? So trust me here, when the market gets hot, exchanges get overloaded. It's better to be prepared now. Now, this offer is for a limited time, so if you are interested, all the details and the sign up link are in the description down below, right? And to be crystal clear here, that is an affiliate partnership, which means that it does support the channel here. And of course, you do get that potential $25 reward. Now, of course, you've got to be aware of all the terms and conditions, which is also linked in the description down below, because not all jurisdictions are going to be eligible. You do obviously have to make that $100 trade, excluding stablecoins, but all the terms and conditions can be found on their own website, which I've linked down below. It's also not affiliated with YouTube in any way. All right, let's zoom out and start wrapping this up. We started with a pretty crazy sounding $30 trillion opportunity. And now it's time to answer the big question. What do we do with this information? Now, for me, the takeaway is both simple and quite profound. It reinforces why I got into XRP in the first place. It's not just because I hope that the price will rise, I mean, I do of course, but it's more because I believe in what the technology can do. Right? News like this makes it quite clear that the real world is slowly but surely moving onto the blockchain. Not in a hype-driven way, but in a fundamental, behind-the-scenes kind of way. Now, XRP might very well be at the center of that shift, quietly doing some of the heavy lifting of moving value so that everything else just runs smoother. It also reminds me that patience in this space can pay off. 10 years is a long time, and I know crypto folks are used to things happening in 10 days. But if XRP's big moment is truly in serving as the kind of backbone for a $30 trillion tokenized economy, well, waiting until 2030 or 2035 could be worth it. Now, I'm not saying to just lock your tokens away and ignore the market. I stay informed and nimble, of course. But what I am saying is that zooming out often kind of gives a much better perspective than starting at the hourly price, or staring at that hourly price chart, right? This story, it gave me that kind of zoomed out view. And hey, I remember all those crazy XRP rumors and memes, right? The $589 by the end of the year type stuff. Well, it's funny because while everyone was joking about that, behind the scenes, XRP's tech was actually getting seriously stacked for real world adoption. So we were busy looking at the scoreboard, but the real game was actually happening on the field. Now, the two might actually finally be starting to align together, the development and the value. I kind of look at that in a poetic kind of way. XRP, the so-called banker's coin, could actually end up enabling some of the most revolutionary financial changes of our lifetime. Now, the rebels and the establishment, they're shaking hands through a digital asset. Who would have really thought? So, as I look to conclude this kind of journey, I want to leave you with a thought. Right, we might be on the cusp of a new era where terms like tokenization become as kind of commonplace as online banking or credit card. And if XRP is as central to that era as this story has suggested, then we are still very early. Now, being early can be uncomfortable. There's uncertainty, and you might sometimes wonder if we're all just crazy for believing in this. But being early is also where the opportunity lies. Now, I'm excited and I'm a bit nervous too, in a healthy way, of course. But the more than anything else here, I am motivated. Right? I'm doubling down on learning and on building and on experimenting, things like Unity nodes and other ventures, and an ongoing engaging with all of you guys, right? Now, this crypto journey, especially with XRP, is one heck of an adventure. It's way more fun and rewarding when we kind of navigate it all together, right? So if you have found this story as eye-opening and as I did, then you can do me a favor by hitting that like button and the subscribe button and joining our community here, right? There's a lot more to uncover and you probably don't want to miss what's coming next. So until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and I'll catch you all in the next one.